Hi everyone and welcome back to a new episode of BWD. In this series we are learning how to code an app to scrape song lyrics from any target website. All we gotta do is to open the terminal, then type my lyrics, followed by the name of the artist and then the song title. For example, let's scrape Yesterday by Beatles. And here we go, these are the lyrics. So if you're new to this channel or you're back watching this video, do not forget you can find timestamps in the video description below. And all the code that you're gonna see today is available on GitHub. Again, link in the video description below. And now, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, before jumping straight into coding, let's go to the board and have a look at the architecture, to be sure that we are on the same page. In the previous episode, we coded part number 1. Now we are able to send a request to AZ Lyrics and get a response back. And then we have also learned how to verify if the response is valid or invalid. However, this part has not been implemented yet, and we're gonna do it today. Finally, we're gonna use BeautifulSoup to extract the data from the response, have a look at them, and then get out the lyrics. And now that we are on the same page, let's start coding. So, from the working directory of our project, let's use the tree command line utility to check what the structure is like. So first, there is the emp directory, where we find all the Python dependencies installed. Then, there is the requirements file, where all these dependencies have been listed to make the project reproducible. And last, there is the source directory, and within it, we can find the mylyrics directory, where we store all the Python code. So, from the root of our project, let's start by creating a lyrics.html file. This is going to be our toy example to explain you what this is about. But why is this relevant? Because any web page that you can find on the internet is an HTML file. And once we have extracted the raw data from the response, we're gonna use BeautifulSoup to convert a text data into the HTML format. And in this way, it will be way easier to get the lyrics out of it. So, what is exactly an HTML file and what is like? Well, it's basically a text file which follows the HTML syntax. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So, in any HTML file, there are two basic components: words and tags. So, instead of giving you formal definitions that might sound like blah blah blah, and honestly, you can find them on the internet, let's just open our toy example and play around with it to understand what's inside and what it's like. So any HTML file starts with, guess what, the HTML tag. Then there is the head tag, but we don't really care about it, so let's just leave it here and forget about it. And then there is the body tag, which is the one that we're gonna look at. So as you might have guessed by now, a tag is basically a word in between two small arrows, and tags go always in pair. You have the opening tag and the closing tag. The difference is that the latter has a slash before the word itself. So the question that you should ask yourself now is, what's the point of having all these tags all over the HTML file? We're going to see in a few seconds, but before that, let's just open the file. So in the window below, let's just go to the working directory of our project and open our toy example. So as you can see, the browser opens it, and it's basically a blank page. But why is that? To answer this question, let's just go back to our example. And in the body, we're going to add the h1 tag, which stands for heading 1. But this time, we're going to put something in between the opening and the closing tag. So let's just write hello world. Back to the browser, let's refresh the page, and look at that, we got hello world. So now we are finally able to answer the previous questions. So tags are basically these elements that mark up the sentence that is found within the tags. For example, the h1 tag is pretty much saying, well, the hello world sentence just displayed and make it larger and bold. But there isn't just the h1 tag, there are many tags. For example, we can play around with the h2 tag. Another one is p, which stands for paragraph. And now let's refresh the page to see what comes out. So as you can see, both sentences between the tags are displayed, but this time in a different way. In the case of the h2 tag, we can see that the sentence is still displayed as bold, but compared with the hello world sentence, it's a little bit smaller. The sentence in the paragraph tags is not bold and even smaller. Okay, so a good question will be, if these tags work the way that you just described, what about the body tag? Why is it there and what is it actually doing? To answer this question, let's go back to the board and draw a few sketches. With our toy example, we have basically come up with a very simple web page, and in the HTML file we coded the structure of the web page, that is called DOM, Document Object Model. So basically tags and sentences. Then we have opened it with the browser, whose role is basically to read the file and render it according to the HTML syntax. However, not all the tags have the same role and function. Some of them are just responsible to display and describe how the sentence should look like. Big, bold, small, this kind of stuff. Then there are other types, like body, which specify where the words or the sentences should be displayed. So if you look at a web page, we can divide it into three main sections, and the central one is called body. And as you might have guessed, the body tag is just saying, put that in the body of the web page. Then there is the header tag, which is basically saying, put this at the top of the web page. And finally, there is the footer tag, which is saying, put this at the bottom. And now, let's go to the Auxiliary website to see if we can find these three sections. Here at the top, where there are all the characters of the alphabet, the search tab and even a video, there is the header. Then, right below, there is the body, where songs lyrics are found. And as you can see, if we scroll down, we can see the body being the largest section of the web page. Finally, at the bottom, there is the footer, where as you can see, there are mostly links to other pages of the website or external ones, like Facebook. And now, let's go back to the project to play around with our toy example. First, let's go to the source directory and create an empty Python file. The idea here is to learn how to crunch an HTML file with our toy example. In this way, we avoid all the complexity from the real case. Instead, we learn the principles and the logic with the toy example. Then, going back to the auxiliary case will be way easier. Within the Python file, let's create the path constant to specify where the HTML file can be found. Let's open the file in read mode and then use the read method to get the content out of it. In the window below, let's run the Python script and see what comes out. Let's start by checking the content of the HTML variable. As you can see, we got a string. However, it's kind of hard to read it. Instead, if we print it, we get the formatted HTML file. Back to our script, let's import BeautifulSoup class from BeautifulSoup. Now you may ask, but what is this exactly? Well, let's think about it as a service that takes as an input the raw data, in our case the string, and then it parses the raw data in what we would like to have, in our case an HTML file. So down here, we're going to store the output of this service into the DOM variable. So let's give as an input the raw data, store in the HTML variable, and then we're gonna say parse the raw data as an HTML file. Now, in the window below, let's see if we can separate the body of the HTML from the rest of it. In the first approach, we're going to use the data stored in the HTML variable, and this is a string. So what we can do is to slice the body out of it. All we need to do is to provide the index of the first character of the body and the index of the final character of the body. In our case, 29 and 132. If we then print it, we can see that we got exactly the body. Now, let's open another window in the bottom right and use instead the data stored in the DOM variable. As you can see, if we display it, we get the content of the HTML file, but the difference here is that the DOM is an instance of the BeautifulSoup class. The big advantage is that this offers an API that we can use to carry out a lot of tasks. For example, we can query several parts of the DOM, like the body. As you can see, this is way easier compared to slicing the string. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's see what happens if we change the HTML file in another window. Let's open the toy example, and let's just add a few characters, for example here in the head tag. As we don't care about it, we can mess it up with it. In the bottom left, we're going to slice the body out of the raw data. So let's quit and run the program again, because we need to load the modified HTML file. As we've done previously, let's just provide the start and the end, and then let's print the body. So we got the closing tag and then the body, but without the final tag. And this happens because we added new characters. In this way, the body has been shifted. And so, if we try to slice it out, it won't work anymore. In the bottom right, let's use the BeautifulSoup library instead. So as you can see, just by typing body, we got exactly what we were looking for. So the takeaway here is that using the API makes not only our life easier, but it also scales to any possible scenario that we might find. But this doesn't stop here. What we can also do is to query other parts of the DOM. So maybe we don't know how many tags there are, but we are interested only in the h1 tag. What we can do is to use the find method to say, from the body, find me all the h1 tags, and here we are, we got exactly this. And the same applies for any type of tag. For example, what about paragraphs? So at this point, we got an understanding of what an HTML file is, and we got a taste of what BeautifulSoup is capable of. And now, let's go back to our HTML toy example and let's try to change it to something similar to AZ Lyrics. Of course, we don't know how AZ Lyrics actually looks like, or any website similar to that, but we can imagine how the structure might be. The only thing we know for sure is that the lyrics are going to be in the body of the web page. Then, probably the title of the song is going to be in the h1 tag, or something similar, because people are looking for the song, so it makes sense to have the title as big as possible. And then we're going to have the name of the artist just right down below. And then there are going to be lyrics, split over multiple lines. So I think it makes sense to have the lyrics spread across multiple paragraphs. Alright, so this is probably a reasonable structure for a web page of this kind. So let's open it in the browser. And here we go, this is what we got. Now let's run the Python script to see if we're able to get the lyrics. So first of all, let's get the body, and then let's use the findAll method to retrieve all the paragraphs. And here we are, these are the lyrics. Great, so by now we have understood the principle to scrape anything from a web page. In the next episode, we'll go back to the auxiliary class and let's make it finally work. So do not forget to subscribe to not miss the next episode. And with that said, see you in the next one. Ciao!